An arrogant millionaire and businessman mocks a young girl for dreaming of success, convinced she'll never escape her poverty. Years later, their paths cross again, but this time the young girl is the powerful CEO and the millionaire's new boss. Mark Henderson sat comfortably in the corner of the upscale cafe, his designer suit perfectly tailored to his broad shoulders. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and as usual, he was focused on his tablet, scanning the latest stock market news. Life was good for Mark. He had worked hard to build his wealth and was now one of the most influential men in the city. In walked a young girl, no older than 18, dressed in a plain, worn-out dress. Her hair was tied back, and her shoes looked scuffed. She hesitated for a moment before approaching the counter. Mark glanced up and smirked, thinking she looked out of place. When she ordered a small cup of tea, he couldn't help but overhear her conversation with the barista. "I'm going to be a CEO one day," she said, her voice filled with ambition. The barista gave her a polite smile, but Mark laughed out loud. He couldn't believe her audacity. "You, a CEO, in those shoes?" Mark said with a condescending tone. "Good luck with that." The girl turned to look at him, her eyes steady and unwavering. "Yes, me. You'll see." Mark scoffed, dismissing her as just another dreamer who had no idea how the world worked. He returned to his tablet, ignoring the burning determination in the girl's eyes as she took her tea and left. Sarah Parker walked out of the cafe with Mark's laughter still ringing in her ears. It wasn't the first time someone had belittled her dreams. Growing up in a small, rundown neighborhood, she had learned early on that people like her weren't supposed to dream big. But Sarah was different. She had always believed that hard work and determination could change her circumstances. As she sipped her tea, her mind wandered back to the countless nights she had spent studying business books, borrowed from the local library. Despite her family's financial struggles, Sarah's passion for learning was unquenchable. Her dream of becoming a CEO wasn't just a fantasy, it was her plan. Mark's laughter had stung, but it didn't deter her. If anything, it fueled her ambition. She knew people like him couldn't see past her appearance. They didn't know about the late nights, the sacrifices, or the fire burning within her. Sarah was determined to prove them wrong. In her heart, she made a promise. No matter how hard the journey, she would succeed. One day, people like Mark would have no choice but to recognize her for who she truly was, someone who had the power to change the world. Sarah's journey was far from easy. After graduating from high school, she couldn't afford to go straight to college. Instead, she took on 2 jobs, working at a local diner during the day and as a cleaning lady at night. Every paycheck she earned went towards savings for her future education. Her days were long and exhausting, but Sarah kept her dream alive. In between shifts, she would read every business article and listen to podcasts about entrepreneurship. The more she learned, the more her confidence grew. She knew she was destined for something greater than her current circumstances. The world around her, however, didn't seem to care. Most people in her neighborhood were content with their routine lives, and many of her peers had given up on their dreams long ago. They couldn't understand why Sarah pushed herself so hard, working relentlessly without rest. Some even mocked her for being overly ambitious, but Sarah didn't let the negativity seep into her resolve. She kept her head down and stayed focused on the bigger picture. It was only a matter of time before her opportunity would come. One day, after her morning shift at the diner, Sarah received a letter in the mail that would change her life. It was an acceptance letter to a community college where she had applied for a scholarship. The news filled her with joy. She had been waiting for this opportunity for months, and now it was finally within reach. Excitedly, she shared the news with her family, though they were hesitant about the costs associated with her studies. Her parents, who worked low-paying jobs, feared that Sarah might be overreaching, but Sarah reassured them, saying she would continue working to cover her expenses. A few weeks later, Sarah found herself in the lecture halls, sitting among students from all walks of life. It was a humbling experience, but it also felt like the first step in the right direction. This was the place where she would start building the foundation of her dreams. Little did Sarah know, her path would soon cross with Mark Henderson once again, under very different circumstances. A few months into her studies, Sarah found herself back at the same cafe where she had first encountered Mark Henderson. This time, she wasn't the timid girl in worn-out shoes. She had confidence, a purpose, and a vision for her future. As she ordered her usual tea, she glanced around and noticed the familiar face sitting in the corner. Mark was there again, glued to his tablet, seemingly engrossed in his work. He hadn't noticed her yet, but the memory of his mocking laughter flooded back into Sarah's mind. This time, however, Sarah didn't feel the sting of his words. She was on her way to achieving her dreams, and his opinion no longer mattered. Still, a part of her wondered what Mark would think if he knew how far she had come since their last encounter. Just as Sarah was about to leave, Mark looked up, and their eyes met. For a brief moment, there was recognition in his gaze. He smirked again, as if amused by the fact that she was still around, but Sarah didn't flinch. She held his gaze with quiet confidence, then walked out of the cafe with her head held high. College life was challenging for Sarah. Balancing her classes with 2 part-time jobs was exhausting, but she refused to let it slow her down. Every day she pushed herself harder, determined to excel in her studies and stand out among her peers. Her professors took notice of her dedication, often praising her insightful contributions in class. It wasn't long before Sarah started landing internships at local companies. She took on every opportunity she could find, even if it meant working unpaid for weeks at a time. She knew that experience was just as valuable as education, and every connection she made would bring her closer to her goal. At one of her internships, Sarah had the chance to attend a networking event. It was a high-stakes affair, filled with business leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs. Sarah felt out of place at first, but as she moved through the crowd, she began to realize that many of these successful people had started from nothing, just like her. For the first time, Sarah felt like she truly belonged in the world of business. One fateful day, while attending a seminar on entrepreneurship, Sarah met someone who would become a crucial figure in her life. His name was Mr. Jameson, a successful businessman who had built his empire from the ground up. After the seminar, Sarah approached him with a few questions, and to her surprise, he was more than willing to chat. They spoke for nearly an hour, with Sarah soaking up every piece of advice he gave. Mr. Jameson was impressed by her determination and drive, and he saw a bit of his younger self in her. By the end of the conversation, he offered to become her mentor, guiding her as she navigated her way through the business world. Under Mr. Jameson's mentorship, Sarah gained invaluable insights into the workings of the industry. He taught her not only about business strategies, but also about leadership, resilience, and maintaining integrity in a cutthroat world. Their relationship grew, and soon Mr. Jameson was introducing Sarah to influential people who could help her on her journey. Sarah's confidence soared. She knew she was one step closer to fulfilling her dreams, but there was still a long road ahead. With her newfound knowledge and connections, Sarah was ready for the next big step in her career. After completing her degree, she applied for a prestigious position at a well-known company that specialized in innovative technology solutions. The interview process was rigorous and the competition was fierce, but Sarah's experience and determination shone through. To her delight, she was offered a position in the company's leadership development program, a fast track for those with the potential to become future executives. Sarah couldn't believe her luck. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been working so hard for. Her first few months at the company were both thrilling and challenging. The pace was intense, and the pressure to perform was constant, but Sarah thrived in the high-stakes environment. She quickly earned the respect of her colleagues, impressing even the most seasoned executives with her innovative ideas and strong work ethic. As Sarah continued to climb the corporate ladder, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come from the girl who worked double shifts to save for college. But she also knew that her journey was far from over. As Sarah's career progressed, her dream of becoming a CEO only grew stronger. She had always envisioned herself at the helm of a major company, leading with vision and purpose. Now, with the experience she was gaining, that dream seemed more attainable than ever. But the path to the top was still fraught with challenges. Sarah often found herself working late into the night, trying to prove that she had what it took to succeed in a male-dominated industry. She faced countless obstacles, from being underestimated by her peers to dealing with office politics, but she never let it get in her way. Every challenge she faced only strengthened her resolve. Sarah knew that success didn't come easy, and she was willing to fight for her place in the corporate world. Her determination was unshakable, and her ambition was unmatched. Little did Sarah know, her journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would bring her face to face with her past in ways she couldn't have imagined. One day, while reviewing a list of potential acquisition targets for her company, Sarah's eyes landed on a familiar name: Henderson Enterprises. She blinked in surprise, her heart skipping a beat. Could it be the same Henderson? The memory of Mark's mocking laughter at the cafe all those years ago flashed in her mind. Curiosity piqued, Sarah decided to do some research. It didn't take long to confirm her suspicions. Mark Henderson was indeed the CEO of Henderson Enterprises, a company that had once been a leader in its field, but had fallen on hard times in recent years. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. The man who had once laughed at her dreams was now leading a struggling company, while she was on the rise in her own career. But Sarah wasn't one to hold grudges. Business was business, and if Henderson Enterprises was a good investment for her company, she was prepared to move forward. Little did she know, the upcoming meeting with Mark would be more than just another business transaction. It would be a turning point in both of their lives.